All right, here we are today. It's Sunday afternoon, September 8th at Pozo Park, and we're here to interview Roger and Randy Stancliff. Stancliff, not Clift. And they reside at Pozo Park Drive 45323. And Roger, let's just start with you. I understand that your mother and father bought a lot here. When did that happen, and how did your home down there on the corner come to be?
Well, my father had a real good friend that was a building contractor up here in Pozo Park, Robert Dahl. And he'd come up and help Bob Dahl work on different projects. And my dad, every time he'd come up here, he said, "Boy, I'd love to have a place up here." And Bob Dahl introduced him to Miss Stegeman, which was the caretaker up here of a lot of the properties. And he talked to Miss Stegeman and looked at some property, some different lots, and decided to buy a lot where we live now in the late 50s, and purchased a lot for $1,200 from Miss Stegeman, and decided to build a mountain cabin, which he did on his days off. He was a city fireman in Bakersfield and decided to build this cabin, and he'd come up on the weekends and build the cabin on his days off, and enjoyed working up here, and come up every other weekend or every weekend, and stayed in a little 14-foot trailer while he worked on the project.
Well, very good. Now, Randy, I know that you guys are identical twins. And so tell me a little bit, when were you born and where?
We were born 1952 in Bakersfield, California at Friese Maternity Home on down on 19th Street, and we resided, our home address was 1008 Lake Street in East Bakersfield, and we were raised there up until 1955. And then my dad purchased a lot up on Loma Linda Drive down from Garces High School, and started constructing a new home at that 146 Loma Linda Drive. And we later on in the late 50 or 55, 56 moved into that residence on Loma Linda Drive.
Okay, well, after your father got the lot and built this place up here, what were some of your adventures up here?
Well, we had many. We frequented the Bernard's house and their cabin, and Keith Bernard and Mary Bernard had all their sons who ran around with us, and they had tote goats. So consequently, that was a big adventure, going down and riding the tote goats up here in the mountains. Nobody bothered us. We had tons and tons, many hours of fun riding those tote goats.
Well, the question is, did you bother anybody?
Yes, we did. We bothered a whole lot of people up here, including Miss Stegeman, and we were always on point talking to Miss Stegeman. She didn't want anybody crossing her property, and there was barbed wire that ran across the Pozo Creek area behind her existing cabin. So we would have one guy look point, and then we would jump the barbed wire fence and run like the Dickens to get away from her, because we were afraid we would get shot in the tail end by a BB gun.
She actually shot at you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, she did.
All right. Well, what do you think about Pozo Park?
I absolutely love Pozo Park. I've lived in Las Vegas, I've lived in Bakersfield, but Pozo Park is definitely tranquility. You know, it is definitely a place of lack of population, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. We have many very, very good friends that come up here frequently, including you and Susan, and we have many friends that live up here permanently, and then also the seasonal people that come up, and we totally enjoy ourselves up here.
Well, listen, how do you make a living up here? What do you guys do?
Well, what we usually do is find odd jobs doing decks, remodels, additions on different cabins. And we this past year we did one for Kelvin Gregory, a pretty good addition that took us through the winter of last year. And now we're in the process of working on a cabin for Frank and Laura Keller, doing a total remodel on their cabin, which is needed. And we'll be on that project for probably a couple months. But every cabin is a venture up here, working on, you find something wrong with every cabin up here and you have to repair it, and that's a big task. It's just a lot of work.
Well, it's my understanding that, originally Pozo Park was more of a camping spot. People would come up here in the summer and camp. Then gradually they tried to get some shelter and had like wooden floors with their tents.
Sure.
And so they just added on, and now some of them are kind of caving in.
Yes, they are. But they did a portion where they could live, and then maybe the year or two down the road, they did another addition to that same property, and they kept the job we're working on now has been added on 5-6 different times.
Yeah. Now, Randy, it's my understanding that you like to cook, and that you have a famous product that you make and sometimes give away and maybe even sell a few jars.
Well, yes, I do, Gene. I thoroughly enjoy the Culinary Institute of Pozo Park, but I make a homemade salsa, and it is something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. It takes me about 6 hours to make 5 gallons, and the name of the product is Pepper Mountain Salsa. And everybody that tastes the product absolutely loves it, and I enjoy making it. And hopefully in the future I will make some money off the product, even though I give more than I sell, but I enjoy making the product.
Well, what's it called?
Pepper Mountain Salsa.
Okay. Now listen, you guys are really kind of famous or infamous, and I've heard this story before, but I want you to relate the story of the Cranbrook Plymouth.
Well, we had an acquaintance that we went to school with, a very close friend. And
now, what age were you?
We were probably, I would say, 16, 17 in that area, maybe 17 and a half. I can't remember. Old age is terrible, and, I forget the exact age, but we had a close friend, and he had a 1953 Plymouth Cranbrook, one of the ugliest cars ever built. But back in the day, we used to cruise up and down Chester Avenue, as every kid in
Bakersfield,
in Bakersfield, California, from Andres to the traffic circle and back. And that was a big thing. It was a ball every Friday night before the football games and after the football games. And we decided to do something kind of promiscuous. We decided to attain many cleaners bags from 1 Hour Martinizing. We decided to get many bags and line the inside of this 1953 Cranbrook with plastic bags, and proceed to fill it full of water and drive down Chester Avenue. We ended up getting snorkel gear, scuba mask, and sitting inside this Plymouth Cranbrook that was half full of water, and proceed down Chester Avenue. Well, lo and behold, we were a big hit, a very big hit. Come up to the stop signs, naturally the water would rush up to the dashboard,
Run out of the doors,
and we had one heck of a laugh out of that. And that was just one of our big adventures, Gene, in high school. But we did get in trouble for it. And actually, believe it or not, the car ran after the water was run out of the floorboards. It kept running.
Now, of course, you were doing this to attract the girls' attention, weren't you?
Of course.
So what was the reaction?
We were a hit.
And all the girls always ask us where the Cranbrook was. And we called it our scuba gear.
Well, tell us about pulling up to the stoplight. What was that like?
Well,
with all that?
We pulled up to the stoplight, and I don't know whether it was 22nd Street, 21st Street, pulled up to the stoplight, and all the water from the back seat rushed up to the front seat, and we were looking out the windows with our scuba mask on, underwater blowing bubbles. So naturally, it was quite a hit.
You're lucky you're still not in jail.
That was back then. You could get away with it, though, Gene. I mean, the stuff we got away with in high school was unbelievable. Now you couldn't do it. But
Haven't you guys had some adventures in the underground in Bakersfield also? Aren't there tunnels in Bakersfield?
yes, we would get out of high school, and instead of taking the school bus home and waiting until 4 o'clock, we would walk downtown and take the city bus home, which was an earlier ride, maybe an hour early. And we would stop at Mary's Hobby Shop, which was downtown, right behind Wickersham's. And we'd go in and visit her, and so we'd snoop around. We knew her real well. We'd snoop around, and we'd walk in the basement, and we found there were tunnels under downtown Bakersfield, tunnels with different supplies for fallout, fallout if something would happen. There's provisions for food for different, things going on. But we would go in these tunnels and we'd walk under Bakersfield, the old school Bakersfield, and she told us not to go in, and finally she gave up and just let us do it, and we walk in. That's how we found out there were tunnels under downtown.
So you went all over underneath
yeah,
Bakersfield.
yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I understand you've got a picture of yourselves here when you were little babies in the crib.
We
So
do, and this was probably, I would say, Gene.
well, stand up here. Okay, here we go, Randy.
This was probably taken, I would say, probably 8 months after we were born, somewhere in that category, a year, and this was taken at 1008 Lake Street, the house we were raised in, up until we moved to the house on Loma Linda. But
And
this
so that good-looking guy on the left is Randy. Is that right?
well, I can't say because we're identical twins. And if I did say the good-looking one, I would be incriminating myself saying the other one.
All right. Well, anything you'd like to say, about Pozo Park and the history before we sign off here?
Well, we just thoroughly enjoy living up here, Gene and Susan, and we wouldn't trade it for anything. Naturally, the winters are a little hectic, but we've become acclimated and able to endure the heavy winters, and we've cut plenty of firewood to keep our cabin warm, since that is our only means of heat. Through our insert, and we cope with the situation, and if the snow falls, let it fall.
Very good. What about you, Roger?
Well, I enjoy being up here. I just I have to go downtown usually once a week to get supplies, and don't like going to town, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But I can't wait to get back up here on the mountain when I'm in town. So
Well, there are a lot of good people up here.
yes, there is a lot of good people.
All right. Well, thank you both, and we'll see how this turns out.